bounty hunters. We don't need that scum.
I'll take on any job for the right price.
You are free to use any methods necessary, but I want them alive. No disintegrations.
As you wish.
Taboo password.
He's all yours, bounty hunter.
Bounty hunting is a complicated profession.
Welcome in, listeners, to the Carbonite Chronicles, presented by the Hyperspace, podcasting in the 25th century. My name is Matt.
I am Jared.
And I'm Mike.
And this show is dedicated to talking about the Disney Plus mega series, The Mandalorian.
Wait a second.
Guys,
Is it really a mega series?
Hold
this
on.
is a mega series. It's the first live-action Star Wars series ever.
I thought this was
think it's
our
pretty-
podcast about our stories about being frozen in carbonite. What the
Yes.
heck?
Well,
That is true.
Well, I don't even know what we're talking about if it's not that.
Well, Ugnaught, you're out.
I'm sorry, I've never met a podcaster before.
We should warn them right off the bat, though, that this show is going to be full of spoilers.
Oh, yes. Hit it.
So get ready. Turn it off if you don't want to know what's going on, but we are going to be spoiling everything for you in this episode.
Episode 2. The
Episode
Child.
2.
The Child.
This was a pace step up from the premiere episode, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
the opening was action-packed.
Yes, it
in
was.
this episode, we really got to see the full capability of the Mandalorian's rifle, didn't we?
Good grief. Did we ever?
Turned those
Man.
Jawas into dust.
Yeah, it reminded me of, the weapons from Spielberg's War of the Worlds.
Yeah, as soon as you started talking, that's what I thought of.
They just
Made me laugh.
they just, in a puff of dust, they were gone.
We'll get into we'll get into each detail, but every time he fired it, it made me laugh.
And he was loading. He was loading some special slugs in there too.
Oh, it was great.
That's the first time we've seen them do that with those, because they always have those like bandolier things or around their thighs or whatever. And it's the first time you ever actually like see them like
Loading
popping
it
them
up
out,
Yeah.
and putting them in.
You never seen Chewbacca use his
Those are
That's
those
true.
are Zippo lighters. Or
for his
for his
Wookiee
mo-
stogies.
Yeah, for all his smokes. Anyway, why don't we go through the plot beat by beat and just hash it out as we go?
Wow,
why
so
don't
much
we?
fun.
Let's do
Why
that.
don't we? Is there a reason why we don't?
I guess if you keep talking, we won't.
Well, it starts out with the Mandalorian with his prize in tow, and its floating little bassinet.
Yeah, I thought that was cool. I mean, you didn't really catch on until later in the show that it's kind of magnetically following him around, like he's got a little
It's got
tractor
that
beam on it.
that same weird hover capability that weirded you out about the Carbonite in
Yeah,
Empire.
no, that's true.
It kind of floats around.
It's just
I
hovering.
thought the
there.
little hover thing that Yoda sat in and
Attack of the Clones. Yeah.
Attack of the Clones.
There you go. So we see the Mandalorian and the child, as it's called per the episode title, walking through a rocky canyon, and the Mandalorian is suddenly jumped from above by 3 Trandoshans.
Yeah, I think it's 3. Slightly
And
different looking Trandoshans than Bosk.
Kind of like
Yes.
how those weird looking Wookiees in Solo.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume that maybe they're just...
they probably grew up on a different part of the planet.
I think this was this Trandoshan makeup, whereas Bosk was pretty much a complete full mask and prosthetic.
Just a mask, yeah.
This was more of a makeup.
More functional
Yes.
makeup than Bosk was.
And I tried to look. They were moving really fast, but, you know, Bosk has the really long forearms. Like unusually long. And I really couldn't tell if these guys had that. I think their dimensions were more just human. But
you know what about this fight scene is it felt like a movie fight scene and not a TV show fight scene.
Well, for the budget, it better be a movie fight scene.
I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, you can always tell when it's like a TV fight scene because they don't move quite as fast. It's like you can tell they're kind of like thinking ahead. Like, okay, I'm supposed to duck here. Okay,
you can feel the hits.
So, but this one, it was like much more, and I feel like they actually sped up some of the movement a little bit. It seemed like some of the motion had been just sped up ever so slightly.
So we see the Mandalorian in a scuffle with 3 Trandoshans, and we see what's he do? He manages to grab one of their axe weapons.
Yeah,
to defend himself.
They're fighting with the Jabba henchman axes, it looked like, that they had in Return of the Jedi.
Right.
The vibro axe.
And he takes a few hits. The Mandalorian isn't exactly on top of this fight. It's kind of
he's at a disadvantage.
Back and forth. Yeah. But then he finally...
Well, he's kind of at a disadvantage the entirety of the episode, which I think that I like, because it's that whole... He's not like Superman.
Right.
True.
Far from it. But the Mandalorian, in spite of being struck a few times, does get the upper hand. He takes his own rifle, and he prods one of the Trandoshans, as we saw him prod the alien walrus in Episode 1. The same thing. He launches a Trandoshan towards the cliff, all electrified, and then something great happens right off the bat.
What is that?
He disintegrates.
Oh, he disintegrates. Yeah, that's
another
true.
Trandoshan with his rifle. So this is the first time we've seen his rifle fire, aside from just being a prod. And it's wonderful when it fires because it just turns them into atomized dust.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
But there was something that was left on the ground after the Trandoshans were defeated, which kind of worried him.
The fob.
Correct.
Yes.
So there are multiple bounty hunting groups with fobs for the... now, is it a fob for the target, the Yoda child, or is it a fob on him? I'm not sure. I didn't quite put it all together.
I'm going to guess it's for the child.
Yeah. That's kind of my train of thought, but I wasn't sure. Wasn't 100% on that.
Oh, actually, and I was talking to my friend Brian, who listens to us regularly. Hello, Brian. And he had an interesting take on Episode 1. He was asking me if I thought that the people he took the baby from, if they were the good guys. And I started thinking about it, and I went, wait a minute. I mean, were they guarding him, or were they keeping him captive?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So I thought that was actually, I didn't think of that at first. And when he first mentioned it, I thought, no, they're bad guys. But then I was like, no, wait a minute. I don't know if it is, but it's kind of an interesting idea.
No, it's good food for thought. Absolutely. We don't know yet. And it totally could be a twist like that down the road.
Well, we do know one thing that, I was kind of hoping would happen that didn't. He didn't sling old IG-11 over his shoulder and bring him with him.
That's true, yeah. I'm still hoping that somehow we see him again.
Yeah.
I think we will.
There's plenty
of
episodes left.
If your wife liked Baby Yoda in the last episode, well, she must have been just giddy over this one, because that little guy
was
being all kinds of cute.
So, speaking about the child, before we continue on into the plot of the episode, the bounty is obviously hot for this child. They're coming in from all over the place. And some kind of interesting information was kind of dropped about one of the characters from Episode 1 that might play into some future theories here. And Jared, you shared that on the chain with us earlier.
Oh, Dr. Pershing?
Yes.
See, I'm not buying that. You go ahead.
I don't know why you wouldn't. It's there.
It doesn't look. It doesn't look like it to me.
It's what?
Okay,
so it's like at an angle.
No, there are behind the scenes photos of Pershing, and that is confirmed.
Okay, well, I didn't
to be,
see those.
All right, let's share out what we're talking about.
Dr. Pershing is wearing. He's actually wearing. No, he's wearing a the same kind of scientist uniform that Galen Erso was wearing in Rogue One. So that denotes a science division. And he has a Kaminoan logo on the shoulder of his tunic. The
Cloners.
They're cloners on Camino.
They're cloners.
He has something to do with cloning.
So, someone who works with or for the
Kaminoans?
Kaminoans?
Yeah.
The cloners is interested in a Yoda species baby.
Well, apparently
that's
they're all
fascinating.
force sensitive.
Or at least the 3 that we've seen of that species
Yeah,
are.
So that's 100%.
Yeah. That's right.
But we'll get to that part later. But we found that's a pretty interesting little Easter egg tidbit there that I certainly didn't see it when I watched it a few times. But I did look it up online and I did see the symbol. So it is pretty cool, and I can't wait to see how that part plays out. So tying in the prequels in pretty neatly.
So he dispatches the 3 Trandoshans, and they continue on their way. And once he arrives back at the Razor
Whoa!
Crest,
There's a scene before the ship where he's sitting there.
oh, he's
The little Yoda
he's fixing himself.
yodeling keeps trying to
But you can talk
heal
about
him
that
or
scene because
something.
he got kind of wrecked in this fight with the Trandoshans. His
Yeah, he did.
breastplate took a hit, and he's repairing his breastplate. So we see his armor's been taken off a
Got a
little bit.
gash in his arm.
He's trying to Predator style hook, fix his arm up, and to Mike's point, the baby Yoda keeps hopping out of its bassinet and trying to walk over.
Apparently, confirming the E.T. Yoda connection, he's trying to E.T. the cut. It seems
That's
to
what
me.
I figured.
That's what it looks like.
And the Mandalorian keeps picking him up and putting him back in his chair.
Yes.
So, it's a very cute little baby.
Yeah, he is. He just wants to help, and you see him up and waddling around too, which
Or
is
she, we don't know what it is, but
true. But it's
the child.
It's funny that he wears Yoda's clothes.
I know.
He reminds me of that little Yoda they sold a while back, the one that was the Jedi training Yoda.
Yeah,
You remember?
I do.
You could talk. Well, we got one in our garage.
He
It's
could
like
make
you'd be like, Yoda, tell me about the Force. He would go like, the Force is, something. But anyway, that's what I thought of when he picked him up and they had that shot, like that wide shot of him carrying.
Yeah.
I thought that reminds me of when I picked ours up and put it on a shelf.
Well, I'm convinced now that this Yoda is a combo puppet CG creation.
Oh, I think so, absolutely.
I think maybe,
And I like it. I think it's great.
I think maybe a lot of the facial movements are CG, and the larger movements seem to me like a puppet. But that's cool, though. A little hybrid.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. The show looks great, and the puppet that they're using, if it is a puppet, looks fantastic. So I'm buying right into it. But Jared, continue. What happens to our protagonist here?
Apparently, I guess they spend the night and continue their journey the next day, and they come upon the Razor Crest completely in the process of being stripped.
I mean,
By
almost
Jawas.
completely.
Such an amazing scene.
You see that thing, and you're like, "There's no way that thing's ever taken off again."
I know.
It is. You can see daylight through every piece
Yes.
of it. There's big holes in his ship.
Next to and parked right next to it is a gigantic sand crawler.
Which before we continue on, this part of it, when I saw the Jawa and the sandcrawler, and this sounds kind of funny because it's you wouldn't think of it as like Jawa making you excited, but when I was a kid watching Star Wars, believe it or not, the sandcrawler I was obsessed with because I always thought it was very cool, but I always wanted more like of the inside of the sandcrawler because I was fascinated by this thing. I don't know why I was, and this episode. To me, I had a grin ear to ear because I was getting my sandcrawler fill in this episode, and it was just so great.
Yeah,
so great.
I think the Sandcrawler. I mean, I had kind of the same response. to the Sandcrawler. I mean, the Sandcrawler's cool, and it's kind of mysterious because you're like, what's in that thing?
That's exactly it. And I was thrilled that they decided to do this episode and include this stuff. But I digress. I just had to add that in, that this was really a special moment for me as a Star Wars fan to get to see this much of the Sandcrawler.
And you can't not have significant 1977 Star Wars vibes with that thing on screen.
So great.
Because
it's you got to watch it on your giant projection screen. I'm watching it on a laptop. So
and of course, again, it looks amazing. It looks like a movie. It looks like Star Wars did. And I have to assume that Sandcrawler is computer generated, but it looks so great. It doesn't matter. But when they come up on that, and we haven't seen, like you said, much of the interior of a Sandcrawler except the brief dark scenes in episode 4 where it's just sort of this junky dark room,
right?
But he's up in the cockpit and the ceilings are really low. He's banging his head on the ceiling, and
well, we're not there yet.
Yeah, I know, but the Sandcrawler in general just rules.
It's a great vehicle, so good on him. But so he sees the Jawa ripping his ship apart, and the Mandalorian does what any good Mandalorian does. He pulls out his rifle and starts to dissolve half the crew.
It starts vaporizing them.
They just start puffing out of existence.
Just their robes.
And the panic that you see that they through his view scope of the Jawa just shooting up into the sky anywhere they can. There's no rhyme or reason. They're just scared. And then just the neighbors keep just dissolving by next to him. It was great. But Mike was talking about, this is the scene Mike was talking about earlier with his rifle and him loading up all the rounds.
Yeah. He kept reloading.
Really authentic. I mean, it felt very real. Like the motions he was going through, you bought into. You're like, this is well thought through and well shot. And they didn't have to have him loading. It could have just been like a pull the trigger, but there was a process to it. And that's kind of like the whole show is giving you these kind of like down and dirty pieces of reality that are really kind of binding it together for me.
Yeah.
So
I told Jared, I said this show is like you feel like you're getting into the nook and crannies of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, that's a perfect way of saying it, right?
And then we go into a great sequence.
Well, if a Sandcrawler could peel out, this one certainly did. They were like, "Oh no, we gotta get out of here."
And he's climbing up that thing, and they're throwing junk at him. I mean, that was so perfect.
But it's great because he grabbed onto the droid vacuum that sucked up like 3PO and R2D2 before.
Yes, and they start
Yeah.
throwing pieces of Mike's garage down at the Mandalorian. And I talked to Mike about this earlier, but that was a clear Last Crusade move.
Oh,
they
absolutely. Even the music was very similar at that point.
Trying to run him, smash him into the cliff.
So the Mandalorian is doing his best to try and scale the side of the Sandcrawler, and the Sandcrawler pilot is trying to dip him into the side of a cliff. And
I like that moment that shows how they communicate through those little like almost like submarine type communication.
Oh yeah, with the inside the Sandcrawler, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're throwing junk at him as he's crawling. It's hitting him in the head. Big pieces of metals is being thrown down at him, and
he eventually makes it to the roof, I believe, doesn't he?
He gets on the roof in a heroic
and as soon as he gets up
leap.
there's like 7 or 8 of them up there.
Well, one of them falls off. I remember one of them.
Oh yeah, one does go down pretty hard too.
Right.
And then they pull an R2D2 on him and just stun him. And he just freezes and just like a statue falls backwards. And I noticed this today watching it. They all say the same thing that Jawa said when he zapped R2. They say it's something like "Chickadaba." Like all of them say it at the same time and then stun him, and then he just goes down like a sack of potatoes.
That's great.
Falling probably 100 feet or whatever it is, and landing flat on his back.
And I love the scene because when he finally comes to, when he regains consciousness, they show him sitting there in the dirt with these huge, immense tracks that go off into the distance, and it's a really neat shot.
Yeah,
and it just kind of like buys into more of the scale of what's going on, and it's great stuff.
And fortunately, Baby Yoda kept up with him the whole time because he's just sitting there looking at him. When he wakes up.
We discover in this episode that he has connected the floating bassinet to his wrist.
Yes.
Gauntlet, and so wherever he goes, the baby follows.
Well,
but he's out of luck. The Jawa at this point have stolen 90% of his ship. He didn't get it back. He didn't overpower them, and this monster behemoth of the Sandcrawler has now disappeared.
But just when you think he's got no other options,
I'm just looking for some beer and maybe a paycheck.
Good old Nick Nolte, our friend the Ugnaught, comes along and says, "Hey man, you've had a bad day, huh?"
Well, in this episode, I think that character got some good quality character screen time. Not that in episode 1 he didn't, but he really was a great part of this episode.
Yeah, he explains to the Mandalorian how he's going to get his stuff back. And it's not by going and killing more of them. They've got to go.
He's going to be forced to trade.
Exactly. So
which he's not happy about.
At that time, in a scene not seen in the film, Nick Nolte and the Mandalorian go to Mike's house.
To the great pleasure of my wife.
Yeah, they go into the garage. They find a bunch of old Radio Shack crap.
Load up the skiff.
Yes, and head back to Tatooine or wherever they are. And they,
I'm not sold. It's Tatooine, by the way.
I'm not either.
Okay, well, I think it is. Looks like, smells like.
I'll tell you. I'll
we
get
know
to
there's
a little later why, but why I think it's not Tatooine. But we'll talk.
We
about
know
that
there's more than one desert planet in this.
Oh yeah, apparently there's they are all desert planets.
I don't know. Where should we send them on in this movie?
How about a desert planet? That sounds good. I think a desert planet would be good. I think it's Tatooine. I just think it is, but
I mean,
I'm sure we'll find out.
There are some things that happen later in this episode which had me doubt it. I was kind of buying into it being Tatooine until towards the end.
Okay.
But anyways, the Ugnaught, whom I can't think of the guy's.
I don't know if he's named.
I don't know if he's been named yet. I have spoken. So he takes the Mandalorian on his blurg, which is the funniest looking tadpole of a monster you've ever seen.
Well, and it does rain, which is kind of weird.
Oh, that's true.
That's part of what. There's a lot of moisture on this planet that Tatooine doesn't typically show.
I mean,
so
it
could just be the other side of it.
We've only seen Tatooine really on a couple of days in its entire existence, if you think about it. I mean, it could certainly rain on Tatooine.
That is true.
Or maybe
true. We don't know the full weather patterns of Tatooine. We've only been there a few times. Anyway, so they track down the Jawas, and the Mandalorian is asked by our Ugnaught friend to put down your rifle.
It's part
of
my
Mandalorian
religion.
I'm a Mandalorian. Weapons are part of my religion. So we're getting a little more fun little back and forth with the Ugnaught and the Mandalorian. But the Mandalorian reluctantly puts down all of his weapons, including his blaster, and he goes to treat with the Jawas to get his stuff back.
And for the first time ever, we have subtitled Jawas.
Oh, that's true. You know what? Obviously I read it, but I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah.
That's fun.
And they make fun of him for speaking Jawa like a Wookiee.
It sounds like a Wookiee.
That subtitle would help us out in the Tashi Station sometime. I don't know what the hell they're saying.
Yeah, I know. We don't get that same courtesy in Tashi Station.
No.
But anyway, I think maybe I saw our waiter in that episode. I'll have to ask him next time.
So the first thing they ask for in trade is his Beskar armor.
Yes.
Which he, of course, refuses to give up.
Declined. Oh, we forgot to mention, we got to see what Yodas eat.
Oh, that's right. That was weird.
They eat frogs.
Whole.
Which makes sense with Yoda being on Dagobah.
Oh, he must have been in hog heaven. There,
I know.
man.
It's like the frog population in this region has declined significantly.
Yoda was just moving to the crazy buffet. He's like, I'm just gonna eat. So if he goes, if my life sucks now, I'm gonna be surrounded by great food.
Well, it's funny because it looked like, like a baby would.
Well, yeah, and that
I want to play with this. Oh, look, it's cute. Little turns around. And he's like shoving it down his
he
gullet.
tells him to spit it out.
Spit that out.
Which he immediately just completely engorges.
Swallows it.
Oh, it was a very funny scene.
That was
the
good
child
stuff.
is very likable in this episode.
We saw that continued sort of natural, subtle humor go, without necessarily. Although the Yoda baby did burp after he ate the frog, so perhaps they were just throwing a bone to George Lucas there and throwing in some sort of gaseous.
Let's have him fart. I think it'd be funny if he maybe just crapped his pants here.
And Favreau's like, well, George, maybe we just have him burp. I think that'd probably be better.
No, I want him to crap and then sniff it.
So yeah, but that was a funny little scene. I really liked the conversation with the Jawas.
Yeah, that was fun.
Well, when I was watching that scene, I realized what this show is going to be, and aside from it being like a space western, it's a quest.
Sure.
Yeah.
And
so, do you think that the asset is going to be the through line of the 8 episodes?
I would think probably at this point, because I base that on the pacing, because the show's taking its time.
Sure.
Like you don't feel like the show's in any rush whatsoever.
Right.
It like does like okay, this happened, the end. Okay, now this happened, the end.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that all of a sudden halfway through they're going to resolve this storyline.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. This will take us to the end. They'll probably bridge us over to the second season with a cliffhanger as well, but it's a big plot. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of directions they can take it. So.
And a bit of a misdirect here, because when they send him for the egg, which is what the Jawas require,
that was their final agreement. If he wants his ship parts back, they have to he has to bring them the egg.
I know Jared thought this. I'm not sure if Matt did, but I'm going to assume you did. I assumed he was going to go face a crate dragon.
Absolutely, that's 100% what I was hoping he was going to do.
Yes.
And then that was clearly not a crate dragon.
Right.
No.
I really, really thought we were going to see a crate dragon in this episode, and I was really, really excited to do it. But not that I was disappointed with what he went up against, but I thought it was going to be a crate dragon, which was another thing where I'm like, well, maybe it's not Tatooine.
That's true.
But anyways, that thing looked real as anything I've ever seen in any movie.
So the Mandalorian has to acquire an egg, which for these very excited Jawa, they're very excited about getting an egg. And obviously the Ugnaught is quite upset and disturbed that this is what they chose for him to get, because the Ugnaught obviously knows what this egg is from, and he doesn't really want the Mandalorian to have to go through this. But he does. And the Mandalorian and the Yoda baby come to a cave opening in a kind of like a rocky clearing, and the Mandalorian enters it and discovers a massive, muddy, hairy beast, which is very similar, mind you, to what they faced in Attack of the Clones, the Reek.
Yes.
If you remember the Reek, that had it was the big kind of buffalo, muscular, big four-legged animal with the long rhino horn and then 2 tusks which came out the side of its mouth. This one only has the single rhino horn, and it's a little bit different in the skull shape, but looks like a relative of a Reek. Yeah, but a Reek was kind of like a reptilian, where this is hairier and kind of like, it's like a buffalo with a giant rhino horn.
When I watched it the second time, I watched it with the closed captioning, and the closed captioning called it a mudhorn.
A mudhorn.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a mudhorn. There you go. There's your name.
But you're right about maybe being a relative of the Reek, like maybe a reptilian type of thing, but because it lays eggs, but it looks like a mammal. Right. So little platypus thing going on there.
But man, this thing wrecks the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
This second time he gets his butt handed to him in this episode.
He just was not having a good episode.
And
he was really getting worked over.
At the end, I mean, he was ready to die. I think with his stance, you know, where he just sort of grabbed his knife and like bowed his
A
head.
vibroblade. It's the first time we see a vibroblade.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
Did you notice that? When they pulled it out, it was like vibrating.
No.
Did you
I gotta
notice
watch
that?
again.
I didn't catch it.
Yeah, watch the blade. It's like shimmering. It's like vibrating.
The Mandalorian is getting wrecked. His armor is just all beat up. His chest plate is now completely bent and hanging off of his chest. He continuously gets just trounced, bashed, thrown around by this thing until finally the Mandalorian, last thing he has no blaster or rifle right now because it's all junked up with mud, so it won't fire his rifle. So he pulls out his vibroblade, puts his head down, puts his hands forward as the beast is charging him, and to Jared's point, that's probably going to be his last stand until
Yoda lifts the X-wing out of the swamp.
Baby Yoda to the rescue.
Yeah, picks him up, and it
Picks
just,
up the mud horn.
Yes, and
it looks great, by the way. It's very clean.
yeah, and first he sort of like stops it, like it can't move forward anymore, and then he starts to lift it off the ground, and its legs start kicking, and he's and he's got his little arms outstretched.
Because instead of killing the thing, the Mandalorian is just kind of like staring at it and all like, oh, it's floating around.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a moment right there.
Because he does it, he drops the thing before he realizes he needs to do something about it.
yes,
And that's exactly right. The Mandalorian takes advantage of this and puts his knife right in the temple of the beast and turns it around a few times to make sure it's dead. But this is a big moment. Now, it's obviously no surprise that the Yoda creature has force powers. I think everyone was expecting it. But it really puts a massive question of the universe to everyone in the canon world here, that 5 years after Jedi, there is a very powerful natural force being here that is still in the universe. So
yes,
I can't wait to find out where they're going to take this or what's going to happen to it. If it's just really fascinating, the storyline. Man, has this thing been floating around in that little bassinet for 50 years?
man, can you imagine the crap that's piled up in that thing?
Man, that thing must stink to high hell. God almighty. I thought about that this episode. I'm like, man, that thing must stink.
Well, the thing is, when George came on set, he's like, let's explore that. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see its diaper. My God, it's probably... It's fossilized to his little butt. But,
you cut open the poop, it has 50 rings.
yeah, it's got rings inside the poop like a sequoia.
Jeez.
Anyway, so
But anyways,
he kills the mud
Well, this is a
horn,
funny scene when he kills the mudhorn. Go on.
and he gets this really strange-looking hairy egg. My daughter actually watched it with me. He's like, does she have a coconut? What is that? And so he takes it to the Jawas, and those slobs just proceed to decimate that
Hack
thing.
it open.
Yes. And
They
start
all dip
slobbering
their hands
it.
in the yolk and just eating it.
Yeah. God, dirty little savages.
They are disgusting little creatures.
There's like a Cadbury egg in there. It's all
That's what I thought.
creamy
Exactly. I
and-
thought. But the egg is a really neat looking prop. I mean, the set department and the props department in the show are doing such a great job. Everything feels so authentic and very real.
Well, for 2 seconds, I thought they were going to eat an embryo.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
But
Well,
then
I didn't think they were going to eat it. I was surprised. I thought they were like that was going to be a prize trade thing for them, but no, they ate
they
it.
just wanted to eat it. And apparently that meal...
They were very dainty the way they ate it.
Yeah, dainty.
Slinging it all over the place.
Well, apparently that meal is worth a starship full of parts.
Apparently.
So he does get his stuff back. And then heading back to the ship, as they get to the ship, the Ugnaught has a very fatherly tone when the Mandalorian's like, this is going to take forever. There's no maintenance. Yeah, it's going to take forever if you just stand there and complain about it. So
I could say that to some people where I work.
yeah. Well, it'd go faster if you'd help.
true to the Ugnaughts form that we saw in Empire Strikes Back, is very handy with
Yes,
repair work and machinery.
They get the ship back, and I gotta say that sled full of parts didn't really look like it was enough to fix what was done to that ship. Maybe they took
It was a Swiss
multiple
cheese
multiple trips back to the Sandcrawler, but it didn't really seem like they had enough spare parts there to even cover half of what was
like
done to it.
There's like one part missing. It's the one that makes it start.
Yes.
Well, I guess we got to go back. Get
The
another egg.
Mandalorian was very impressed, offered him
And
a part of his reward.
Let us not forget that after the Yoda creature exerts the Force, he just goes to sleep for, I guess, days. He's completely exhausted.
Yeah, I was kind of worried about the little guy there at the end when he was sitting in the ship
Because,
with him.
I mean,
was
obviously,
like, is he gone?
That took a lot. Well, you noticed he would shake the bassinet every once in a while and, see him breathing. But
It's obvious, too. He's become attached to this thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
which I'm kind of curious. That's another. I mean, what happens now? Because
I have a theory.
okay, well
I have a
we
theory.
can finish our recap and then.
Yeah.
So they
He
fix up.
offers the Ugnaught a position as a crew member
Yes.
because he was so talented on fixing, which the Ugnaught
He's like
declines.
He's like, nope, I'm retired. I'm done with that.
he spent a lifetime of trying to get away from servitude so he can have his freedom and enjoy the rest of his life. Which
Plus, that
the
toilet was
Mandalorian
way too big. He didn't want to get sucked out into space
Yeah,
every
that-
time he used the bathroom.
It's a big toilet in there.
So the Mandalorian was gracious and grateful, and he took off, and he left that planet, whatever that planet may be, behind.
Yeah.
I think he's going to lose the child. Whether he turns the child in and gets the reward or it's taken from him.
Oh, then he goes on a rescue mission.
Yeah, I think he's going to, if he turns in the child, I don't know if he's going to get paid for it or not, but either way, he's going to go back after the child. He's going to, I think, get on a very noble mission to help the
It
child.
could be. I mean, it could.
I don't think he gets to just retain the child. I think he's going to have to chase him again.
Yeah, it could be that another bounty hunter takes him away. Because I mean, that's what we've seen up to this point. In each episode, there's been another bounty hunter or set of bounty hunters after it. So
It didn't seem that hard to find the thing. I don't know what the problem was. Everyone seems to be able to find him.
well, you had IG-11 and then those you saw those Trandoshans
In
in the
bar with
first
Grief.
episode, and they were giving him knowing glances.
Yeah.
So they probably, what I'm thinking, they followed him.
Or Grief sent them to get the Mandalorian. Who knows? There's a lot.
Possibly.
I think we're going to see a lot of intrigue and double cross
Yeah.
in the future episodes here.
But whatever happens next, I mean, the story of the acquisition of the child is over. So now,
Right.
what happens? I guess.
Well, what
Well,
happens
I guess
now,
we'll have to see.
What happens is
next Friday.
if you don't have a Disney Plus membership, I highly recommend you go out and get one. In fact, you get a free trial, and I believe if you just sign up with Fios, if you're a new customer to Verizon, you get a full year free of this. So
Yeah, you get-
there's a lot of people out there without excuses to get on board and watch this show because this show is fantastic.
True. And, if you wait until next Friday, well, you could conceivably watch, four episodes for free.
Well, I don't know how you're going to get past all the spoilers.
Next Friday, there'll only be 3, won't there?
Yeah, but if you sign up for
They
a
drop it
week,
2 next week.
if you sign up for a week, you'd go to the next Friday after that, so you'd be able to watch 4 of them.
Oh, or you could just wait till they all air and then
You
sign up
could,
then,
but
and then
nobody
you can
wants
watch
to
them.
do that because look, I'm telling you right now, whatever my wife put on Facebook notwithstanding, Baby Yoda is no longer a secret. He is like one of the most famous things in Star Wars. I mean, that is the truth.
That's true.
Look,
well, so far, after 2 episodes, and now after all of us together collectively watching the sequels that have been made and the one-off movies, I have to say after 2 episodes, I feel that this is amazing, amazing Star Wars canon that I'm watching. And for the first time, for one of the first, except I think since Rogue One, really, and Solo to some point, I really feel excited about learning about this Star Wars universe, that I'm really buying into everything they're feeding me here. Not that I was doing that for the sequels, because there are some things in the sequels so far that, you know, I'm not too thrilled with, but everything I've seen in these 2 episodes so far, I'm eating up, and I love the fact that this is now the universe that Star Wars is belonging to.
You know, and this is what you said illustrates kind of a problem that the sequels are having, and that's if you go into the territory of the legacy characters, Han, Luke, and Leia, it's like you're messing with sacred stuff almost. But these stories, like Rogue One, Solo, you know, young Han Solo, and the Mandalorian, they're not touching those characters or their memory or their legacy. You know what I'm saying? These are new stories featuring new characters that you don't have this 45 years of baggage with. Right. So you're more willing to just go with it and say, yeah, this is brand new. This is exciting. And
also they're embracing what has been before as opposed to trying to distance itself from it.
Yeah. So, you know, I think that's the future of Star Wars post sequel trilogy. It could be pretty exciting if you can finally just stop with the baggage of, you know, the big three and 3PO and R2 and all those famous guys that we grew up with. And now we have, you know, new adventures with these people. And, you know, if they want to keep it on television, as long as it's this kind of television, I'm fine with that.
Right. I'm very energized with it. I can't wait to see more.
But
our podcast is now officially longer than the episode.
Yeah, it is.
That is true.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that for 1 second. If I have one gripe, and I can't even really call it a gripe, but, you know, I think we were all under the impression we were going to get hour episodes out of this. And I was a little disappointed when I saw it there on the menu screen, 33 minutes. I'm like, I mean, what is this? Is this an episode of the Clone Wars? What are we doing?
Well, for the price that it costs per episode to make,
yeah,
I think it's a fair expectation that we all thought we were going to get a much longer episode out of.
You know, they're putting every cent of that money on the screen.
Yeah, I have no complaints, and it's going to give me at the end of the day a 4 to 4.5 hour movie.
Yes, absolutely.
Each season, which is what more do I want? This is great.
Yeah, you know, and it gives me great hope for the Obi-Wan show as well. It's going to probably have similar production value.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for listening to the Carbonite Chronicles, Episode 2.
Program note for our listeners. Next Monday, the regular Hyperspace podcast will continue on Monday as usual. And the Carbonite Chronicles will follow shortly thereafter. But this week, we just wanted to use the Monday show to catch everybody up on Episode 2, The Child.
Exactly.
We have spoken.
I have spoken.
You know you can't live without this content, so subscribe to the Hyperspace Podcasting in the 25th Century. Follow us on social media, leave us a review, and join us next time as we take you into the 25th century.